And I knew
Uh-huh.
like right in that moment, like right when she said radio dramas, that that was like the Holy Spirit. Because it was just like, yeah.
Well, g'day. Welcome to the Thomas More Center channel. My name's Mark Makievetsky, and today we have with us Alex D from the Saints Alive podcast. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you, Mark, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Wonderful. So before we get into, I guess, the ins and outs of Saints Alive, I just thought we'd get a bit of a backstory. So if you could, well, I believe you grew up in a devout Catholic family, so would you be able to tell us some more about that?
Yeah, thanks be to God, I was born and raised Catholic, a cradle Catholic, and my parents really did a great job of instilling the faith in me at a very young age. They basically were rediscovering their faith at the same time as becoming parents, so it was a very just natural progression into the faith together as a family. It was a really beautiful thing. It's something I've tried to do my best with my kids too now that I'm a father, because I just all of my siblings, we somehow naturally came out having the faith, in a very secular time.
Hmm.
So obviously my parents did something right, trying to figure out still what they did, but I think it comes down to a lot of just, they naturally were discovering the faith with us. And so it was just this organic growth together. Um, but yeah, so I was born and raised in upstate New York on a little horse farm, actually, growing up with about like, I don't know, 7 to 10 horses at a time, helping keep them in shape and just feeding them, walking out the stalls, stuff like that. But that was a major part of my childhood was that. And I ended up going to college in Western New York at a small state school where I eventually fell into the love of acting and filmmaking. And that's eventually what drew me to Saints Alive to continue telling stories.
Great. What were the horses for, by the way?
They were purely for my, that's a great question. They were purely, my mom is a big horse fanatic. And so she had grew up with horses as well. And so they were really just to be enjoyed. She was a big horse person, but also my parents wanted, they really wanted, this is another part of their parenting style. They really wanted to have something for us to do as a family, like work wise together.
Hmm.
And so they did make a pretty conscious effort early on to have a farm atmosphere be part of our family culture. And so that just became horses, which was which was two birds, one stone for my mom because she loves
Yeah, right.
horses and obviously they're a lot of work.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good intro. How about so tell us just about I guess the lead up to Saints Alive, what your life was like, and how you found your way to where you are now.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I went to school in Western New York at a small state school. I was pursuing politics before I fell into acting and really had a kind of quarter life crisis. And I just knew that God was not calling me to do this. And I was just like, God, I don't know what you're calling me to do. So I took a semester off and really prayed. And I just like I had this call in my heart always from a very young age to tell stories and to be acting in films. And so I had done a lot of things all throughout my childhood and high school career, but I never took it seriously until I took that semester off and was like, just a lot of prayer, asking God what he wants me to do. And I just felt like, I don't know exactly what he's calling me to do, but this thing has always been in my heart to do. And so I have to at least investigate it. And so I went back to school and took an acting class and just loved it. And then I knew that like, okay, there's something here. I have to take it seriously. And so I ended up getting a little mini scholarship actually from my school because I was not bad. I was pretty good. And so I continued my studies, went through all my studies in undergrad, and then I pursued acting in New York City, ended up getting a manager, and then flew out to Los Angeles for a pilot season. And I lived and moved out to Los Angeles in 2016 and was just pursuing acting and filmmaking full time. And I learned pretty quickly that I was not going to be able to do a lot of projects as a faithful Catholic.
Mhm.
I didn't go out there naive. I knew that going into acting and filmmaking was going to be a battle. And I knew that I wanted to use my gifts and talents for God. And I went through a lot of prayers at this time, just asking God, you know, is this what he wants me to do, or is this what I really just want to do for myself? And I think every Catholic actor has to come to that point of just really asking, really in a position of humility, why do I want this? Is it for fame, or is it to actually glorify God?
Mhm.
And because I think like every actor, every creative, at some point, like there's a part of us that no matter how pure, we there's a part of us that wants that fame, you know.
Sure.
Um, and there's not really a way around it. So we're in a fallen world. I have a fallen heart. You have a fallen heart. Every person has a fallen heart. Um, and so that was a really big thing for me to wrestle with, and I still wrestle with it a lot, honestly. But I I said, God, like if you want to remove this from me, if you don't want me to do this, then by all means, like take this away. And I don't need to act. I don't need to do filmmaking. I don't need to do that. Um, I will be perfectly happy serving and loving you in another way. He never took that um that drive away from me. I mean, that desire has always been there, but there's always been this drive in me to pursue filmmaking and storytelling too. Which, you know, as a creative, if you obviously have it's one thing to have a desire, it's another thing to have something pushing you towards something bigger than yourself. And I just really felt that like God was asking me to continue making a sacrifice to pursue this because it is a sacrifice in a lot of ways to put yourself continually on the chopping block of the creative industry. You are going out there every day and getting rejections.
Mhm.
Um, and so I felt that God was still asking me to do that. He's still asking me to put myself out there and continuing to get those rejections, which I got many of. Um, but eventually, what ended up happening was I ended up getting a position as an intern for a small Catholic production company in Hollywood. And it really changed my life. I got to work on a film about Father Patrick Peyton. I don't know if you've heard of him. Many people haven't, but he's the priest that coined the phrase, "The family that prays together stays together."
Okay. Right. Yep.
And it changed he really changed my life. And he really called me to, so I got to, my job on this film was completely behind the scenes, which was, as a actor and filmmaker, was like humbling. It was like, okay, I'm not going to be in front of the camera.
Uh-huh.
Okay, God, I get it. Which was, I think, like, God, one of the moments when God's just like, he kind of pulls us into these situations that's a test, of what is truly on our heart. Because I could have said, no, like, God, like, I don't, like, this is below me, like, I'm supposed to be in front of the camera, not behind the camera. But, there was other reasons also why he just like kind of forced my hand to take this position. And I did, and I kind of did it begrudgingly, but it ended up changing my life, as I said, because Father Patrick Peyton just really convicted my heart. I mean, every day I had to go through hours and hours and hours of archival footage on this man, and recordings and radio interviews, just listening to his message of the family that prays together stays together. But he was so much bigger. It's just his message was really about saving the world through uplifting the family, protecting the family. And it really spoke to my heart because if I really am honest, like what I really will love about storytelling and acting is that I want to affect people's hearts to move them to Christ. And I think the most important thing to affect people's hearts for is to move them towards the fulfilling beauty of choosing sacrifice for their families for Christ, to
Mhm.
do that. Um, And so Father Peyton really moved me to do that. And I ended up working for that company for about 2 years. And then that really was like the first seeds of Saints Alive being born was like because Father Peyton actually worked in radio and he did radio plays. And so I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like he used storytelling to move the masses towards the faith and to
Mhm.
also move them towards like choosing family life and to choose to protect their families. And so that's really where it started. And in the process of that, met my wife. We fell in love, got married, had our first kid, and then became really clear during COVID that we had to move out of LA and escape the COVID land. And so that was a big move for us because it basically was me feeling like I was leaving my dream, like leaving Hollywood behind. And again, having to make that choice to protect my family, provide for my family and my wife, and figure out, hey, God, like I'm going to follow where you lead me to protect them and provide for them. Ended up moving across the country back east to be closer to our family. And at that time, it was very apparent to my wife that I was very creatively frustrated. And even I was trying to not be, I was really trying to
Uh-huh.
not let that be seen
Mhm.
and, be this husband who is I didn't do a great job at like making the sacrifice, holding it and hiding it. I didn't do
Mhm.
a good job about that. So she was like, Alex, you left LA, you obviously, made that sacrifice for us because that's obviously what you wanted to do, and I know that's what you wanted to do, but I know it was also painful to put leave that dream behind you. Um, but I want to let you know that like, I know that there's something still on your God's still calling you to tell stories, and I want to be there with you to do it. And so Melissa, my wife, is really like I don't know, I can't say enough about her, but she really was the spark that kind of pushed me to think past like, okay, LA is like the kind of mecca of all things storytelling. Like this can be done anywhere, and Alex, like we can do this together. And so she's the one that really, pushed me to do that. And then we started Saints Alive together through that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a story of kind of self-denial and taking up your cross, and then, but obviously something opening up. So that's providence, and it leads kind of nicely into the next question, which was, were there any moments, I guess, in that period where you kind of saw God's hand directly at work in what you were doing, or was it largely a retrospective kind of, oh, that's what he was up to?
Yeah, it's a hard question. I think yes, yes, and
Mhm.
like there was many moments when the first moment of like the idea of Saints Alive came to me, it was very clear that like God like was telling me like this is what you need to do. I actually have to give credit where credit is due. Like actually the first like actual like kind of clear detailed idea for Saints Alive came from my mother, who was like, also seeing me being creatively frustrated and was like, Alex, like, why don't you just make Saint films? Like you always wanted to do that. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that, Mom, but it's so much money. It's
Mhm.
so much money. And I don't have that money right now. And I also need to be able to provide for my wife and not have my wife go crazy with a newborn baby right now. And a film is a lot to a lift, is a big lift, a heavy lift by
Mhm.
myself. And she was like, okay, well, what about radio dramas? And that just like stuck. And I knew
Uh-huh.
like right in that moment, like right when she said radio dramas, that was like the Holy Spirit. Because it was just like, yeah, that it was just so clear to me that like that was also it was what's needed right now. And as a father, it just pierced my heart that, of course, we need these stories told and we need them told really well. And I know that I can do it really well because God has given me a lot of experience through all the rejections he's blessed me with of how to tell stories well. And I need to use that now for this. So that
Mhm.
was a very clear moment. Um, Another clear moment was when we submitted ourselves to what's called the OSV, our Sunday Visitor Innovation Challenge, which is a 9-month long process to win a grant in this competition for $100,000. And we got through round after round after round after round. I think there was like 4 rounds that you have to get through
Mhm.
to win this thing. Um, and there was just this moment when we were preparing for our final pitch, and I just felt like just like the communion of saints like standing in the room with us, like telling me like just speak clearly and with distinction, and God will provide the rest. And so I was like, okay, because I'm like, I was just a bundle of nerves. Like I've never been on, that type of like a pressure cooker moment of $100,000 being on the line that was like, this is going to make Saints Alive, help us get off the ground, or we're not going to be able to do
Uh-huh.
it. And so I was like, God, like I'm here, like the rest is on you. Like I need you to kind of do the rest here. And that was just like this moment though in that pitch when I just like I just felt the communion of saints by our side. Like I had like this presence of like just like someone putting their hand on my shoulder. Like it was just the most beautiful thing. And thanks be to God, we did end up winning that competition. So that was instrumental for helping us get off the ground and to continue telling these stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great start to for the business to be able to get that kind of thing. So and I'm sure people would be interested in knowing that there's actually a grant around that actually offers that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean, pray for them. Unfortunately, so the OSV Innovation Challenge, they had to take the last year off, and I'm hoping that they continue to be able to do it. I don't
Mhm.
know what the status is though. They did like I think 3 years, and they had to take 2023 off. So pray for them. Hopefully they can keep
Mhm.
it going because it is a great resource for the church.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So your first episode was on Saint Nicholas. Could you describe the rationale you follow when you're choosing your saints?
Yeah. So when we first started, we really wanted to recapture the saints that we felt were kind of secularized by the culture.
Mhm.
They have been stripped of all of their Catholic nature and all their Catholicity, and so we wanted to recapture them and tell their stories. And we also launched in December, so we were like, okay, well, we might as well do Saint Nicholas, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, so that's really why we started there, and we wanted to, there's so much legend around him, but we wanted to, do it in a way that was still uplifting the faith and capturing the imagination and just there's so many beautiful traditions around these saints. Some of the more legendary ones are still really important for us to think about and to pray about. And so we did our best to, do that with him. And then
Mhm.
we did the next saint that we did was Saint Valentine because, Valentine's
Agree.
Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then we did St. Patrick. So three, big saints, here in America, here in the States anyway, that are kind of like everyone. So most people, have some sort of like Christmas celebration, or St. Valentine's Day is a big deal. St. Patrick's Day is a big deal. So we knew that those days, those saints would be good starting points to just refuse them with their Catholic heritage
Mhm.
and to like really capture the imaginations of kids so that they can see like wow, like our faith has impacted the world. Like these days are here in everyone's calendars, and for some reason people know them, but like why do
Mhm.
people know them? um and so we really wanted to capture that why in these stories to tell them well. And then from there, once we did those kind of more, just kind of enculturated saints, we then started following the liturgical calendar, and a lot of prayer goes into those saints that we've chosen. A lot of times, they come down to, hey, I'm like Saint Joan of Arc is just like a really powerful saint. Like we want to tell that story.
Mhm.
A lot of times it's like, okay, God, what saint right now do we need to remember? Like what saint is important to think about? Actually, Saint Thomas More was one of our very early episodes, and we were very convicted by his life and his testimony to truth, and such an important saint for today. So I mean, every saint comes with an important, like, I call it like what is the heart message that the saint is kind of trying to communicate.
Mhm.
And so we pray a lot about that, and to like what does God need us to do. And then a lot of it is also, we keep track of like whenever someone writes into us, and says like, "Hey, can you do this saint?" We keep track of all of that. So
Mhm.
um, we have a lot of people that write into us for requesting saints, and eventually, usually like enough of a force is built up, and we're like, okay, we'll do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Going back to your early rationale and going and St. Nicholas, it's interesting because on in December we also back here in Australia ran a talk on St. Nicholas of Myra, I think the pronunciation
Yep,
is,
yep,
and how he kind of turned into Santa Claus. And it was so interesting to see how much had changed from being this kind of mariner of saints of the Mediterranean mariners to a man in a sleigh from the
right.
North. But also in terms of like for Catholics, the tradition of gift giving. So gift
Mm,
giving was December 6th, and it was only after the Reformation that it got moved to Christmas or
mhm.
Christmas Eve. And so I guess if you're talking about Catholics trying to kind of recover things, um, do they reconsider their gift giving traditions and things like that? So yeah, I just
Yep.
thought that was something, is interesting. You talk about kind of reclaiming saints and kind of clarifying who they were and what they're about. And then finally on this groundswell of uh, support for a saint for our Australian audience, I think they might be interested to know whether Saint Mary MacKillop might be in the works at some point. Is there anything
Yeah,
you can say to that?
I can't say anything about it, but I will say that one thing that she's now on our list. Like
Very
she's on
good.
our list of saints to research and consider. Because
Okay.
I did not I need to learn about her. I can't say I'm an expert. So
Mhm.
that's really awesome though that you guys have a saint. Yeah, we only have a couple here in the States. I think
In Seaton and
and Mother Cabrini
uh-huh.
and maybe one more. Oh, and well yeah, Kateri Tekakwitha,
Hmm.
technically native. But yeah, so yeah, I gotta look up Mary McKillop now and
Uh,
learn more
and
about her.
Aussies, you've got your cue. The more the more letters, emails you send in, the more chance you've got of
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
appear
Everyone
uh,
start
into
flooding
the
the
topic.
inbox.
Very good. So, each story of yours is sometimes broken up into two parts, but it averages between 30 and 60 minutes. How long does it
Mhm.
take to produce an episode?
Yeah, it takes a long time. I want to say it takes about 300 hours for one episode. And that could even be a little low because I don't know if that fully encompasses all the writing time,
Mhm.
and the editing time, like the edit of the scripts. But the editing, the actual software editing, like when we take all the voices, so we record everyone, I direct everyone, they send in their takes, I send back notes, and they send back takes again, and then putting everything together with our editors and sound design and sound effects and everything. Um, that's easily 300 hours. That's easily 300 hours for an episode.
Mhm.
Um, which is it's a lift, is a lot of work. And honestly, every time we do an episode, every time we start a new episode, I'm like, God, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it. Like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do this. But he gets us through.
Yeah, wow. And so you're one of three on the Saints Alive team. It's you and Melissa and Tanner.
Yes,
That's
Tanner
correct.
Kalina. Yep, yep.
Uh-huh.
We are the three co-founders.
Uh-huh. But my understanding is there's also a lot of other help you receive. Is that true? So you just mentioned before about people with scripts and whatnot.
Yep. So we have a small writing team now of amazing writers that we, continually kind of recycle into our season. And then we have two other um like bit editors for the actual episodes themselves, like once they're in post-production. So like, helping me put all the files together and put the music and sound effects together. And then we have all of our actors, obviously. So we have about 20 actors per episode, and they're actors all over the world. I'm trying to think if we have any from Australia yet. I don't think we do. So
I can
that's
set
always
you
some.
up for the Mary McKillop episode. I'll get
Yeah, there we
South
go. There we
Australian
go.
accents, which is
That's
the probably the most original.
Oh yeah, yeah. We definitely need if we're gonna do
Okay.
Mary McKillop, we need to
Mhm.
have awesome Aussie accents for that. But the yeah, so there's a about 20 to 30 actors per episode, and now we're also part of the Hallow app, which has been such a blessing. Because now we have a team of their editors too. They're helping master things and making sure that things are technically working with every episode, which is such a blessing because I was doing everything myself before and trying to make sure that things were working.
Mhm.
And they also have a great team of like kind of content writers as well that help, pitch ideas and things like that. But basically, like they're just helping support us that we're actually able to keep doing this is because of Hallow, and they have been instrumental to keep us going. So yeah,
Okay.
we have a great team now in place that is just it is awesome to work with all these amazing creatives, all these faithful people really on fire to tell the stories of the saints in ways that we need to hear them.
Mhm. Well, that segues quite well into the next question, which is given your partnership with Hello, I guess you're producing a series about Lent for kids. Is that one? And
Yes.
another one on Eucharistic miracles. Can you tell
Yes,
us
so
more about that?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have our Lent series coming up here, which is called The Saints and the Spirit. And these are very simple episodes. They're more teaching episodes on the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So each Monday throughout Lent, we'll be releasing an episode on highlighting one specific gift of the Holy Spirit. And how we do it is it's told through a story of this little girl named Mia, and she doesn't know what to do for Lent. And then she finds this idea of learning the seven gifts of the Holy Spirit. And her brother Paul, who we've seen some of these characters in other episodes throughout Saints Alive. And so if you listen to some of them, you'll maybe be like, oh, that's that character from St. John Paul II. But yeah, so her brother Paul gives her this saint book that dives into the lives of the saints and reveals some of the gifts of the Holy Spirit through their lives. So these are very short episodes, about 8 to 10 minutes long, just
Mhm.
going through a vignette of a saint revealing or discussing that gift of the Holy Spirit in a way that hopefully kids can learn more about the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and honestly parents too, because I can't say that I knew all of the each of the seven gifts on the back of my hand before I started working on the series. So
Okay.
so that's what we're doing for Lent. And
Mhm.
then we are also doing this is just right after Lent. This is not technically released yet, so a little kind of exclusive here. We're doing a Triduum series as well. So
Oh,
that's going
wonderful.
to be more. I can't say too much more about that, but that's going to be a really beautiful series.
Mhm.
Um, and then to help hype the National Eucharistic Congress here in the States, we are going to be doing a series of Eucharistic miracles through May and June to kind of bring those stories to life through
Mhm.
Blessed Carlo Acutis, actually like discussing the stories, and then we dive into the Eucharistic miracle as like
Mhm.
a Saints Alive episode. So very exciting stuff, and definitely stuff to keep on your calendars.
Yeah, for sure. I can guarantee we'll be listening to that. So
Awesome.
wonderful. Thank you. So I saw you mentioned in another interview that you're keen to provide entertainment that doesn't require screens. Obviously, it's also a bit cheaper, as you
Mhm.
said before. But would you ever consider pairing your audio with an animated series?
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of the background here too. So I became a father in 2020. And very quickly it was like, there's screens everywhere as a
Mhm.
father. Like, I'm just constantly trying to not let my kid, grab a phone or watch my computer screen or like everything like that. And it's really hard. And so
Mhm.
I really value that our content is audio because it
Mhm.
really does spur the imagination in ways that like, obviously film is beautiful, screen like using a screen to tell a beautiful film is awesome. But I really value audio just for its sake of its ability to strengthen our imaginations. That
Mhm.
said, I do also value the beauty of film and the beauty of visual storytelling. And I do see us someday, perhaps soon, especially with like the help of Hallow and developing things with them, being able to create these things into animations and like beautiful animations. I think one thing with Saints Alive that we always come back to is that we do not want to make anything that's not beautiful.
Mhm.
And you know, there's ways of doing things simply, but we always want to come back to we want to do this beautifully.
Mhm.
And so if we end up going that route, like that's what we really will do, and that's what we'll focus on is to really reveal God's truth through beauty and making sure that we can do that well with animations or, a screen.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a gap that would be filled if you were to do that, because I think a lot of
Yeah.
us have grown up with subpar content. But I
Yeah.
think it's actually great that theoretically you could have the audio version and the visual version, because you were saying how the audio helps to develop people's imaginations, and that reminds me of when I was younger. Dad took away the TV for about 3 years, and I would
Right.
listen to like, cricket matches from England, and I'd have to imagine every aspect of it, bar the audio, and it actually
Wow.
made for a really exciting sport,
Yep.
more so
Yep.
than watching it. So yeah, there's benefits to both, eh?
Yeah,
Um,
there definitely is. And I think I think there's a beautiful renaissance happening right now for audio because like parents are, just trying to we're not alone in this. Like a lot of parents are struggling with the same thing. And I don't think it's not gonna go away. Like people are still gonna have to deal and contend with this and um screens are, not gonna be just all of a sudden disappear out of our lives. So there's gonna have to be this I think intentional choice to find things that are going to to strengthen the kids' imaginations, and I want Saints Alive to continue to be in there in that space, to
mhm.
be there to fill that void.
Uh-huh. So you were for quite a while you were in the space of kind of being a frustrated Catholic creative. So
Mm.
you would be well placed to give some advice to those who are trying to build up the kingdom but don't seem to have made an impact yet. So what could you kind of say as an encouragement or advice to those Catholics who are struggling?
Yeah. I would say that, follow your true vocation first, which for me was a father and husband. And that was the first thing that needed to be put into its proper place. Um, looking back now, I wish I learned that a lot sooner. Um, I I was like this, typical LA kind of Hollywood actor type, really obsessed with himself, thinking that I'm not going to get married until I have my career exactly where I need to be, and I'll probably be like married when I'm 35. I'm not saying it's bad to be married when you're 35 at all. I'm just saying like that was like I chose that age because I thought that like by that time I'll obviously be like
Established.
famous,
Mhm.
you know? Um, and I think a lot of people are doing this right now. Are they're just like, I'm not going to get married until I have a house or the career or, whatever. You name the thing that you're, putting first before your vocation to, whatever it is, if it's the religious life or as a husband and father or a wife and mother. Um, and so that was the first thing that needed to be basically God slapped me across the face and was like, what are you doing? And then once I kind of figured that out, my creative kind of focus really shifted away from myself. And so that's the first thing. That's the second thing that needs to happen is you need to shift your focus away from yourself. If you're doing that like I was, like generally your stuff is not creatively not going to be that very interesting, like because it's a lot more powerful to tell a great story about someone that is not yourself. There's this film coming out right now, or not right, it's coming out soon about Jennifer Lopez. And I don't know if this is like really making the rounds yet on social media or any of the media spheres, but it's a film about her and she's playing herself. And I'm just like, that is the most uninteresting thing I've ever heard. Like, I will not be watching this movie, and this looks horrible. Um, but anyway, it's a little tangent there. But I think like, there's just like this kind of thing right now in the culture, generally that has seeped into all of us, which is like, you gotta be, you it's all about you, and it's like it's not. And if you fall into that, if we fall into that, we become extremely like kind of turned inward. And creative storytelling, creative endeavors are like so much more interesting when they're trying to reveal outward. They're trying to, you know, point outward from ourselves. Like, and I
Mm,
always come back to like pointing to God. Like that's the most important thing. And finding ways to do that that are original and that are vulnerable and that are intimate. Like that's like the ways to reveal truth like that are needed.
mhm,
um but they don't generally come out of pursuing selfish pursuits. Like that's just not how it works. And that's what I've learned. If I were to like look at myself, before, um like when I was just getting to LA, you know falling into pilot season, having my managers and agents and doing that. And if someone came up to me and was like, "Oh, Alex, in 5 years, you're going to be telling stories of the Saints through audio dramas. You're not going to be in front of the screen or the camera. You're going to be behind a computer. You're going to be, directing people, but like not right in person all the time. And it's not going to be about you." Like I'd be like, what? Like, no, like I'm not doing that. But um I have been thankfully proved very wrong. And I'm really glad. These Saints stories, like they're the true celebrities.
mhm,
They're the true ones that I'm like, I get to be moved by.
mhm,
And I'm a much better person and creative storyteller and artist because of it.
mhm,
And it's not about me. It's about God. And if I can use my craft to do that, then I'm a happy camper. I'm a
mhm,
really happy camper.
mhm. So you might have noticed nowadays that many people, including Catholics, are using AI to produce text and imagery
Hmm.
for whatever they're promoting. So I was curious to know what your thoughts were about this, and can something be made by a machine touch the soul? Is the kind of what I'd
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
know.
I'm gonna come pretty hard down on not using AI for this stuff. I think it's extremely damaging. Um, because we don't want art to be created by machines. Now, I think that there's I guess there's a difference of let me think here. Humans have always used tools, right, to create and to build. And so that is one thing. So like, using Photoshop to create an image yourself, is one thing. But to type in something into a program to just do for you is something completely other than that. And I don't know exactly how to uh you know delineate the two other than describing it like that. But there's a definitive difference between a human sacrificing time and energy and thought and their experience into something versus telling a computer to try and do that for them. um I think it's dangerous, and I think that it's very I can usually always tell like an AI image from an image created from a person, from a human hand.
Right now.
And right now
Yeah.
exactly. And I
Mm,
don't I don't know exactly how long that will last. But like we have to ask ourselves, like, do we want to live in that world?
mm,
Do we want to live in a world where creative images or creative things don't have a human value behind them? Like that is something that, do you want to be a part of that or not?
mm,
I don't, I
mm.
don't want to be a part of that. Um, I think your question is interesting though. Like, do you think that can something be might be made by a machine to touch the soul? Um, I think that this kind of like maybe if like a false dichotomy there, because like the machine is still going to be taking something from a human to tell that to make that effect happen.
Hmm.
No matter how hard it tries, like AI is taking and putting many, many, many millions of, calculations and algorithms based on humans together to
Hmm.
make whatever it's making. So it's still taking something from a human to make that. Um, my main gripe with it though is that when it does that, it basically like it takes the individual out and takes the person out of like who is behind that. Um, and it's going to have a cascading effect of devaluing of quality imagery, quality art down the line. And I don't know exactly how to stop it besides prayer, because I think that like unfortunately, um we live in a fallen world, and I see a lot of people seeing this ability and its power, right? Um to be able to do this. But I think that it is going to, I have hope that it's going to also cause like this kind of this division of people who will like really choose like, no, I will partake in the very human creation of art. I will not go into this machine world of art. And so I think that there's going to be some sort of division that starts to happen. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I think that will probably be what happens.
We could potentially be going back to a point where before the printing press, so to speak, when you had like manuscript illuminators and scribes being paid large sums of money to produce authentic work.
Right.
And you could argue that AI is the next stage along from the printing press, where everything got mass produced, and now humanity is basically being pushed aside. Um,
Right.
yeah, just a couple of things arose while you were speaking, and I remember there was some issue in Hollywood with especially kind of bit actors, I suppose,
Mm.
striking because they were worried that their images were going to be used and replicated, and they would essentially be redundant. Is that true?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a major part of the SAG strike, SAG after strike that was just basically just ended, I think a little while ago. It was a long strike. And rightly so. The studios wanted, basically to have complete leeway over how they were, able to capture images from people and to basically like take their image and, basically make um it possible to reuse, performances or likeness from actors for as long as they wanted,
Mm.
which is scary. And I don't know all the details yet, actually, of the final agreement, but that it was a good thing for that to happen. It was a good
Mhm.
thing for them to put that on the line and say, no, you cannot just scan our likeness and use it
Mhm.
forever. And you cannot just make films without people. Like that's something that I I I think like the computer animation is amazing, and like Pixar is amazing because of the people behind it, not because of that computer helped make the image. It's
Mhm.
always come back to the people.
The
You
sense of
take the
humor
people,
and all of that. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
you take the human out, and it's not interesting anymore. It's not heartfelt anymore. It's just a shell. And so I think that no matter how hard AI tries, no matter how hard people try to do this, we will always come back to we are flesh and bone, and we want to be connected to other like incarnated souls. Like
Mhm.
we do not want to be divorced from that. No matter how hard we try to convince ourselves through all of the flashy gimmick, all of the flash and all of the glitz and glamour of whatever AI can do,
Mhm.
does it have, can it touch you? Can I feel it?
Mhm.
And like that's going to come down to I think like the dividing line that it won't be able to. It'll be able to make a copy, but it will not be able to be the actual essence of human.
Yeah. There was an interesting comment I heard maybe a month or so ago. I think they did a poll of AI engineers, and I think 10% responded that AI would have the potential to destroy humanity. One of them said no, but he said, however, it's got the potential to drive humanity insane simply
Hmm.
by blurring the lines between reality and fiction to the point where they're no longer distinguishable.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. There'll always be one way of telling what's true and what's false, and one will be completely soulless,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
the other one will evoke something, which could be the evidence. But
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
times. Um,
Definitely interesting times. Definitely interesting times. And yeah, I think again, we need a lot of prayer. A lot of prayer.
mhm. So the fact that you're raising a family and producing content for children indicates that you have a certain hope for the future. And despite the fact that we have voices of doom and gloom inside and outside the church. So I was wondering, what signs do you see that God is at work in the world in the now?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And I think that I look at my daughter and I look at my son, and I forgot, who quote where this quote comes from, but you know, every child, every baby that's born into the world is a sign that God still has hope,
I think
and
it's Gandhi.
oh, is that oh, okay.
Mm.
I was like, where'd that
Closely
quote come
related to
from?
quotes from Mother Teresa, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was
Yeah.
actually listening. I was just listening to Mother Teresa's uh Nobel Prize speech today, actually. So maybe I actually conglomerated it from that too.
Mhm.
But I believe that, every time I look at my kids, I'm like, I have to have hope. I have to keep hope. God has um he's done so much, so many bigger things compared to the problems we have today. And I think that if we look at today and we look at the problems, which they are big, they're very big problems, and we are in dark times, but God is a lot bigger than that. And he's a lot, and we can't limit him as long as we have breath within our lungs, we
Mhm.
have to remember that. And I have to keep on and holding faith to that, because I think it's very easy to, yeah, become to despair, but we cannot fall into that. We have to be people of hope and have to be people of light in this very dark time. Um, so I see that every story that we tell about the saints, it's like so apparent that it's easy to look back and be like, oh, but they weren't falling into complete disarray with all of the darkness today. When if and you just name your pick, you pick your thing that we deal with today when it comes to like gender ideology or abortion or any of these things. Like the saints didn't deal with that, but they've dealt with a lot of different things. They dealt with heresy, and they dealt with extreme persecution and martyrdom and things that we can't even imagine. They dealt with, and they
Mhm.
came through the other side. Some of them, yes, were martyrs, but a lot of them also brought the light of Christ into this world. And we are standing here today holding on to the light that they brought. And it is bright. It is bright. And it is so much brighter than we can even imagine if we just actually prayed on it and reflected on it. And every time I go into one of the stories of the saints and actually like learn about them, I'm like, wow, like that is courage. And that is what we need today.
Mhm.
And so I have a lot of hope because the saints have gone before us and they have done huge things through their faith.
Mhm.
And I think today, if we just have like, not even not even a pound of their faith, if you just have an ounce of their faith, sometimes this world will change. It
Mhm.
will.
Yeah.
Um, and so I come back to that a lot, that as dark as it seems, there have been very dark times in our world. And I also come back to like, when it's dark, the light shines brightest.
Mhm.
And that is true as long as we hold that light up. And as long as we pursue that light will burn bright. It will. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah. I feel like we're going into a time where we'll have a whole bunch more saint stories coming out because
Mhm.
we see sin abounding, so grace abounds all the more. There's more opportunities in a sense. Whereas I think back, I'm not sure about your experience, but when it was the 90s, it felt like a big cruise.
Mm.
Especially the 20s. Everything was really comfortable. The
Mm.
faith was still welcome in the public square. And that I imagine would be a particularly difficult time to develop a life of sanctity because you're in this acedia of comfort. And
Right.
whereas now we kind of start feeling some pressure, and
Right.
of course it's a trouble, dangerous time for some people if faith isn't strong or their prayer life isn't strong. But at the same time, I think there are people out there who are going to be pushed and are going to
Mhm.
and they're going to be brought forth. And in 20, 30 years, you might be telling
Right.
their stories. Uh, you
No,
know,
very true. Very true. And
yeah.
like I mean, you don't grow muscle without going to the gym and putting yourself under tension. You know,
Mhm.
it's the same thing with yeah, the faith. And I think you're right. Like the 90s is very young, but like I look back at that time and be like, now I'm like, wow, that was like so easy. Like no, like people had generally had, things weren't too crazy, and yeah, the faith was welcome. And but today is completely different. And you're right, it is yeah, where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more, and it's on us to like now really be the witnesses that we need to be.
Mhm.
Because people will, I believe that like, we have to be realistic that we will face a lot of resistance, we will face persecution, but there will be amazing opportunities for conversion too. There will
Mhm.
be, and it's hard to like think about that today because everyone just seems so cemented. But you don't think St. Paul was cemented, before his conversion. Like there are miracles that can happen um if we let them, if we go out there and bring the faith into a needing time.
Yeah. So this brings us, so I guess, to the last question I'd like to ask you, which is, do you have plans beyond Saints Alive? I understand your plate's very full, and you might not be
Yeah.
looking beyond, but is there anything that you would have on a wish list?
Oh man, that's a good question. Actually, oh gosh, I don't even know how to answer that question. Um, Saints Alive has just been honestly such yeah, full plate would be putting it lightly. But man, I think like the biggest thing is just being a good father and a good husband. Like that's my main thing, and if I can do that while telling these stories and telling them well and inspiring the faith, then I am a very happy camper. But I think that again, it comes back to that long-term dream of mine, like to tell stories visually. And I do want to do that still. I do want to continue to act and film, and I would love for these things for I would love to make all of our Saints Alive episodes, yes, into animations, but also make beautiful Saint films about them. So that would be like a completely long-term thing. Still revolving around Saints Alive, I guess. But um I just, man, like I want to build something that tells the stories of the church and moves hearts to Christ. Like that's what I do. Like that's why Saints Alive exists. And if that is growing this into those films, then great. And if God moves my heart, if God moves another door open to do that even on a larger scale, then I'll follow him there.
Mhm.
But the main thing is to be a good husband and father.
Absolutely. All right. Finally, what way can our audience support you in your work? What's the best way? Obviously, subscribe to or to your podcast. But what else
Yes,
can they do?
yes. Yeah, please subscribe to our podcast. We're Saints Alive podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, um, Pocket Casts, wherever you get your podcast, you should be able to find us there. Um, Definitely check out our website, saintsalivepodcast.com. But also like the main way right now to support us is to subscribe to Hallow if you haven't already. Download the Hallow app. You can write to us, you can, send a message through the support channels if you want, saying, "Hey, I found you through Saints Alive." That would be awesome. But Hallow, I have to say, has been such a blessing, and they have supported us from the start. They somehow found us when we were only 2 months old, and they were just like, "Hey, we want to get you on the app. Like, we can't pay you much money, but we want to get you on our app at least so people can find you." And it was awesome just to get on there. And then this past year now, 2023, I was doing this full time. I was working a full-time job at another place and then doing this full time. And so basically, I was working, I don't know, like 80 hour. I was not sleeping. Like, it was crazy. And I felt I knew that, like, something had to give. I knew that, God had placed Saints Alive into my hands, and I had to choose it, to protect it, to keep it going, and to grow it if he gave it to me. And so I did, left my job, and we didn't really know exactly what we knew we had about 6 months of being able to produce Saints Alive and survive. Um, and then 2 weeks after I left my job, and I didn't even email Hallow at the time. I didn't tell them anything. They messaged us and were like, "Hey, we want you guys to survive, and we want you to thrive, and we want you to continue telling stories with us. How do we make that happen?" Um, and so thanks be to God that happened, and we merged with them. So basically, please support us by downloading Hallow and listening to our stories there. And also, like, they have amazing, amazing prayers. I think that, they're coming back to what we were talking about before, about the darkness we're dealing with in our times. We need prayer. We need prayer. And there are amazing resources of prayer on Hallowed that just knock me away, like blow me away every time. Like, there's just so many beautiful resources they have. So definitely check them out. And but also please download and follow us on Saints Alive podcast, on Apple, Spotify, and all those other places too.
Right. Right, before I let you go, I'll just give a quick little plug for the Thomas More Center. We're just starting out, very, very young. But also, if you could like, share, and subscribe to us, that would be appreciated. Alex D, it is getting late your time. I think it's past 9 p.m. So
But
I
the
appreciate
night
you.
is still young. The night is still young over here.
If you're a night owl like me, it is very young.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Thomas More Center channel. Thank you for all your work. My kids listen to you on the way to Mass many Sundays of the year. And I guess it's an incredible thought to imagine that whether in Australia or, who knows, South Africa, England, United States, your content is feeding souls and forming kids in the faith. So it's a great vocation to have. And yeah, just thank you for all of that. So goodbye, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you.